All right, today we are diving into something truly incredible. We're cracking open a library that was literally buried for more than 1,500 years. And what's inside? Well, it's a collection of scriptures that paint a completely different picture of early Christianity, a version that honestly was almost wiped from the history books entirely.
So let me ask you this. What if the story you know isn't the only one? What if the version of Christianity that we all know today wasn't the only game in town back then? Imagine, what if there were other gospels, totally different revelations, and ways of seeing Jesus that were just as powerful, just as meaningful to people?
Okay, so picture this. It's 1945. We're in Upper Egypt, near a town called Nag Hammadi. A local farmer is just going about his business when he stumbles on this sealed jar. And inside, 13 ancient leather-bound books. Now, these weren't just some old books that got tossed aside. No, they were hidden. Hidden on purpose and with great care, probably to save them from being destroyed.
And that incredible find, that's what we now call the Nag Hammadi Library. It's an absolute treasure trove with more than 50 different texts. A lot of them are what we call Gnostic Christian works. And here's the crazy part. For centuries, the only thing we knew about these texts came from the people who hated them, their opponents. But now, for the very first time, we can actually hear these lost voices speak for themselves.
So let's get into it. The first mind-blowing thing you find in these texts is a totally different take on reality itself. It starts right at the beginning, with creation and the Creator.
Check this out. The Gospel of Philip, one of the books they found, just drops this bombshell. It says, flat out, the world came about through a mistake. Just let that sink in. That one sentence completely flips the script on the whole perfect, divinely planned creation story we know from Genesis.
Yeah, in a lot of these texts, the being who created our physical world, the one they often connect with the God of the Old Testament, well, he isn't the real God, not the ultimate one anyway. He's seen as a lesser being, a flawed, sometimes even clueless creator they call the demiurge, which basically means craftsman.
So in one book, the Apocryphon of John, this creator figure, his name is Yaldabaoth, he boasts, "I am a jealous God, and there is no other God beside me." Now, in this text, that's not supposed to be the truth. It's actually meant to be kind of tragic. It shows how blind he is. He has no idea that there's a true, perfect God, way up in a higher spiritual reality, totally beyond his comprehension.
So you end up with this really clear split. On one hand, you've got the demiurge, this flawed, jealous architect who built what's essentially a material prison. But on the other hand, you have the true God, perfect, unknowable, the source of everything spiritual. This God exists in a realm of pure light they call the pleroma, which just means fullness.
Okay, so if the world is a flawed creation, a mistake, where does that leave us? Right? It's a huge question, and the answer takes us right into the Gnostic idea of what a human soul actually is.
You know, the intro to the English translation of these texts has this beautiful line from the poet Wordsworth, and it just perfectly nails the Gnostic vibe. This feeling that our real home isn't here, that we're like exiles, little sparks of light that came from somewhere very, very far away.
And this is a complete 180 from the idea of original sin. In the Gnostic worldview, we're not born sinful or broken, not at all. We are divine spirits, literally little pieces of the true God from that higher realm who had this tragic fall into the material world. We got trapped in these physical bodies, and in the process, we forgot who we really are.
So the journey of the soul is this epic story, really. It starts with our origin, as a divine spark. Then there's the fall, where we get trapped in matter and fall into this deep sleep of forgetting. The turning point is the awakening, which happens through something called gnosis, secret knowledge. And the grand finale? The return, escaping this world and going back home. So what is this gnosis thing? It's everything. It's the absolute core of this way of thinking. And it's not about book smarts or just believing in a creed. Gnosis is this direct, intuitive aha moment. It's a deeply personal revelation, a secret knowledge that you are divine. It's that inner knowing, that self-realization. That's the key to salvation. Which, of course, brings us to Jesus. If salvation is all about this personal gnosis, then what was his job? Well, as you can probably guess, these texts have a very different take on his mission.
So in these Gospels, the whole idea of Jesus dying for our sins, that's seen as part of the flawed creator's system. Instead, Jesus is a messenger from the real God, the one from the higher realm.
He's like a spiritual guide who comes down into this murky world to wake us up, to wake up those divine sparks inside us by giving us the gnosis, the knowledge we need to get out.
I mean, the Gospel of Thomas doesn't waste any time. The very first sentence lays it all out. It says, salvation isn't about just believing. It's about interpreting. It's about understanding what he's saying and finding the secret meaning. If you can do that, you can overcome death.
Another text, the Gospel of Truth, really hammers this home. Jesus isn't a sacrifice, he's an illuminator. He's not just asking you to believe him, he's showing you a path, teaching a truth that can lead you out of the darkness of just not knowing.
And this quote from Thomas really brings it all together. It's all about self-knowledge. See, in this view, to know yourself is to know God, because that divine spark of God is literally inside you. And if you don't know yourself, well, that's the real poverty. You're living in poverty and you are the poverty.
So you gotta ask, right? If these ideas were so powerful, what happened to them? Why did they vanish? Why were these incredible books buried in the sand? The answer? Well, it's all about a massive conflict that shaped the future of Christianity forever.
Here's the bottom line. Gnosticism was a huge threat to the organized church that was starting to form. Why? Because it's all about the individual. Think about it. If salvation comes from your own personal aha moment, then what do you need priests for? Or bishops? Or a single unified set of rules? You don't. It completely undermines the whole structure.
And you can see how fast things changed. By about 1800, you have church leaders like Irenaeus writing these huge books, arguing against these heretical Gnostic ideas. Fast forward to around 350, and there's an organized effort to just destroy these books. The monks who buried the Nag Hammadi Library, they were saving them from being burned. And that's where they stayed, totally silent for centuries, until the full English translation finally came out in 1977. Incredible.
So in the end, what the Nag Hammadi Library really does is open a window into a lost world. It's proof that early Christianity wasn't this one single thing. It was this vibrant, messy, and often argumentative scene with all these competing ideas. These texts, they're like the voices of a Christianity that was a road not taken.
And that brings us to one last thought, inspired by the Gospel of Thomas, which says, "The kingdom is inside of you and it is outside of you." After digging into all these lost scriptures, the one challenging question they seem to be asking us, even now, is pretty simple. If the kingdom, if the divine is already inside you, what are you waiting for?